The Mother vs. Waltz. I'm here to finally answer this accursed question. And I know no matter what the verdict may be, people will remain unsatisfied. Which in hindsight is acceptable for the fact that whatever the conclusion may be is just my opinion. However, I intend to use facts and feats shown from both characters in the games. The verdict will be derived from all this. Also, we gotta keep in mind that people like a villain more than the other, which disrupts their perspective of the truth, and therefore will default to the Ooga Booga mindset and claim that their favorite out of the two is stronger. Speaking of which, there will be two questions to answer in this video. One, who is stronger in terms of physical strength, and two, who would win in an overall fight to the death. So hello my gooners and welcome back. It's been a long time since my last video, but with Thanksgiving my schedule got a little ruined. But I am back, and also happy late Thanksgiving to all of you watching. I hope you had a wonderful time, ate some good canned coochers, and without further ado, let's begin with the video. For the videos I make where villains duke it out, I typically always include their groups and have them fight too. However, if you know anything about Dying Light, then you know that the Mother's cult is utterly trash. They are by far one of the weakest groups. If it wasn't for the whole blue mist, they'd be cooked. So I want to keep this part short since the answer is quite obvious. Also keep in mind you have to bend time and use your imagination to have these characters go up against each other. So who wins in a full-out war, the Children of the Sun or the Renegades? I honestly think a small force of renegades would be more than enough to wipe out the children. The children were not fighters at all. Do you remember what happened to that one guy who got captured and had nails hammered into his face? Yeah, well, their fate would be a whole lot worse. You also gotta keep in mind some of these renegades have been altered by the experiments of Waltz, making them even stronger. And they suffer from having extreme anger issues. Also, the number of faceless were quite low and the majority of their strength lied with the Mother. I mean, just look at what happened to them. The remaining force of Rice's gang, led by an incompetent leader, was more than capable of wiping them out. The children are just really pathetic and the renegades would just end up using them like barracks bunnies. That's why I just wanted to keep this part short because the answer is quite obvious. And now that we've gotten this out of the way, we can start going over the Mother and Waltz and see just how strong these villains were. Alright, let's start with the Mother. She is actually kinda hard and confusing to give an accurate gauge of her strength. A lot of what we learn about her and see is kind of left ambiguous. So the best I can do is break it down to determine what she is capable of. First, I want to talk about her being a volatile. We know she first got bitten before consuming the blue serum, and when she was having a seizure and about to turn, she consumed the serum. We know when a person first turns, they become a viral, but for whatever reason, the serum transformed her into a volatile. Now, this is by her own accord.
I awoke, down there, surrounded by the remains of the people who had trusted me. It was because of the light. Someone finally turned the power back on, and the light brought me back. In the light, in the sun, my mind is my own. But in the dark, my new nature dominates. Mindless, lethal. In the dark, with cruel passion, I ripped my own children to pieces.
So why does this matter at all? Well, according to her, the light and the sun keeps her sane, and in the dark, she goes mindless. So what, a simple light bulb can keep her from turning? And does that mean if she ever entered a dark room for enough time, she would just go feral even though if the sun was out? I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, it's just a little weird if anything. I've also seen people argue that she maybe learned to control her volatile powers and the night no longer affects her, which at no point is there any evidence to suggest this. She doesn't even mention being able to control her powers in the night. Okay, so she's a volatile, but not your typical volatile. So here's a question, is she physically stronger than a volatile? Well, let's just see what she did. For starters, she slaughtered a large force of Rice's soldiers and tore them to pieces. She also picked up Crane by the throat and tossed him. But that doesn't necessarily give us the answer we're looking for. I mean, if you give a volatile its mind back, it could possibly do the same thing she did in the aforementioned stuff. So I decided to compare a normal volatile and a Mother in terms of how much damage they deal. And I found a volatile does somewhere between 19 to 21 damage. And this is just your typical volatile in Dying Light 1, and it's not including the alpha volatiles. Okay, well, how much damage does the Mother inflict? It seemed her attacks always dealt the same amount of damage, and in her case it was 21. Also, this is only including her physical attacks and not her scream. So you'd think they are relatively close, and I mean you aren't kinda wrong, but the issue lies with Crane. See, I can only gauge the strength of volatiles on human Crane, while the mother was hitting a much stronger beast Crane. And I think it's kinda safe to assume that the Crane who fought the mother and his beast state would have had a higher durability. And if we believe this to be true, then the mother by all means should be stronger than the average volatile. Now, this was already kinda obvious, but the thing that made her stronger than the volatiles wasn't her strength, it was her annoying stupid scream, her telepathic powers, and the fact that she can fight while using her brain instead of being a mindless beast. But now we can comfortably say that she is stronger than a normal volatile. How much stronger? Well, who knows, but I do think she's somewhere in the range of a volatile and a demolisher. I don't think she exceeds a demolisher's strength because there isn't anything to really suggest this. Could she be stronger? Sure, but I don't think so. And I'm not saying the mother would lose to a demolisher, I'm talking about pure strength here. So don't go after me in the comments saying that I said she loses to a demolisher when what I'm doing here is comparing their physical strength. She also does differ in a few ways from your normal volatile. For starters, she doesn't possess their spitting ability and instead she has her scream. Everything else is just about the same. Alright, so the second thing I want to talk about are her telepathic powers. This is the most confusing part of her power since most of it is left ambiguous. So we know for a fact she has telepathy, but the only issue is her other abilities. During her fight, she not only summons clones, but teleports around when Crane tries to run from her. None of these abilities make sense and she shouldn't be able to use them, which actually she more than likely isn't using any of these abilities, but rather I see 3 different options as to how she can do this. A. She is using her telepathic abilities to induce hallucinations onto Crane. B. The fumes in the area they are fighting are causing Crane to hallucinate, possibly caused by the mother. And C. The fumes plus the blue serum Crane took are allowing the mother to cause strong hallucinations onto Crane. Now, why do I believe it could be one of these outcomes? Well, for starters, we know she isn't Naruto spamming shadow clones. This is just very obvious that it's some type of illusion or hallucination. Could my 3 options be wrong? Sure, but I know for a fact her summoning clones and teleporting isn't really happening. I mean, you must be riding the short bus if you actually believe she can do these things. I mean, the mother herself during the fight mentions that the fumes are strong, suggesting that maybe they are affecting Crane in a way. Also in Dying Light the Beast, we see how Lydia is able to induce a strong headache onto the Baron. It isn't hard to believe that the mother would be able to manipulate Crane's mind. Heck, even after she dies, Crane is still hallucinating and he's hearing her voice. But like I said, it's either caused by the mother's powers, the fumes, or the blue serum, or a combination of all 3. But that's basically the gist of her powers. I guess she has her exceptional scream that deals a whole bunch of damage. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that in her final fight with Crane, the lights in the facility turn off, meaning the mother is going full lethal on Crane. Most of her attacks are basic like a volatile, and she can also dodge. And if she gets pressured too hard, she will scream to force Crane off her. Now that we have gone over the mother, we can finally go over Waltz. Now, compared to the mother, Waltz had a whole lot more screen time, therefore we have more content to gauge his strength. So Waltz conducted various experiments on himself which significantly boosted his strength. In his base state of power, he is capable of killing Peacekeeper soldiers with a single blow. He also launched Aider at Aiden and then knocked out Aiden with a baton. So already right off the bat, Waltz is presenting high levels of physical strength. Is he ripping people apart like the mother? No, but he is killing them with one blow. You also gotta keep in mind, Waltz was like Aiden, who could take inhibitors to boost his power. Sadly, we will never know just how strong Waltz would have become if he had kept taking inhibitors. Periodically, that is. We saw that taking too many inhibitors at once isn't a good idea. Either way, whatever he did to himself gave him a huge weakness, and that weakness is to UV lights. Also, from time to time, if he gets mad enough or takes too much damage, he'll go mad with rage and the virus consumes his mind for a short period of time. We saw a few instances of this, like when Lawan shot him with arrows. At one point when Waltz and Aiden are fighting, Waltz yeets Aiden and sends him flying. Then shortly after, they both get blasted by a missile and survive. He's also able to smash the ground and cause shockwaves. So these were some of the things that happened before Waltz's and Aiden's final fight. Now let's go over the final fight. In his base before taking the inhibitors, he was able to do some crazy attacks with his arms. It would seem he did get stronger from the first time Aiden fought him. Not only can he control the shockwaves he causes by pounding the ground, but this time he can cause a devastating blow that knocks Aiden back. Also, I'm not too sure about this, but it seems like he coats his arms arms in some kind of energy, but this could be for dramatic effects. Either way, he gets more vicious with his attacks. His durability is crazy strong, allowing him to shrug off most attacks. He can block with his arms and jump relatively high up to this point. After taking some damage, the veins in his arms begin to glow a deep orange. He becomes more vicious and starts running around the arena. He's actually strong enough to launch concrete at Aiden like a demolisher, and keep in mind, all the things he can do so far are without taking any inhibitors yet. And yet another thing, he is able to fight smart because his mind isn't consumed by the virus. The first time he takes an inhibitor, it seems to have restored a large portion of his health. Furthermore, it does appear to have made him stronger. How much stronger? Well, who knows. Either way, his physical capabilities have been bolstered, allowing him to jump even further than before. And finally, when Waltz injects himself with like 3 inhibitors, his physical abilities are pushed to the max. He also kind of becomes feral, but it does seem like he retains some small level of control over his mind and body. But yeah, this is basically everything Waltz can do. Now, it might feel like I rushed Waltz a bit, but once we go over the fights, I'll go into better detail, but for now, we can answer the first question. So in terms of physical strength, who is stronger? Well, for the Mother, we established that she is more than likely stronger than your average volatile. However, there is no evidence to suggest that she is stronger than a demolisher. Now, I'm not saying she would lose to a demolisher. What I'm saying in terms of physical strength, she is not on the same level. So how strong is Waltz? Well, for starters, he launched Aiden a greater distance than the Mother launched Crane. He also used Aider as a ragdoll and threw him at Aiden. However, there are 2 defining things for Waltz. For starters, he is physically strong enough to destroy the ground. We saw him do it in many different ways. Secondly, like a demolisher, he can rip up concrete and hurdle it. Is Waltz as physically strong as a demolisher? Well, we never saw him push a car aside, but he was presenting similar levels of strength by launching concrete. So who is stronger? Well, at this point, if you couldn't guess, well then there's no saving you. It is clear from what both of them showed that Waltz is physically stronger. Now, you could argue that the Mother is stronger because she was fighting a Crane boosted by his beast powers. The only issue is that even if you take this into account, she wasn't capable of causing shockwaves or destroying the ground. She couldn't even launch concrete, and Waltz was doing all this before even taking an inhibitor. So the verdict is that Waltz is physically stronger than the Mother. Now the question we've all been yearning for, who would win between the Mother and Waltz in a fight to the death? Now before we get to answer this question, we need to establish what each one can do. So for the Mother, since we actually don't know if she's able to cause hallucinations or illusions on her own without the need of the fumes or the blue serum, we're going to have to either choose to give her those abilities or not. I want to make this fair and give them everything they had when each one of them fought their opponent, and even though I am reluctant to do this, I'm gonna give the Mother her ability to summon clones and teleport. Like I said, I don't know what necessarily causes the illusions, if it's her powers, the fumes, or the serum. But we're going to say for at least this fight that she herself can induce these hallucinations. I know this might disappoint people a bit, but I really want them to be able to use all their abilities. Let's say she can induce hallucinations onto Waltz since his mind is already vulnerable from the virus and all the experiments he did to himself. So if we give the Mother all this, then it's only fair to give Waltz all the inhibitors he had when he fought Aiden. So now the fight can begin, and the verdict, the Mother loses. Or at least I think she does. After going over everything, this isn't even close. I don't even understand why this is an argument. Let's just compare them just for you to see. The Mother was a sentient volatile for who knows how long. She then proceeds to get packed up by Crane, who, keep in mind, it was his first time ever using his beast powers. She even used all her shenanigans of summoning clones and teleporting and using her scream to stop Crane from running away. Then during their fight, she uses some of the most basic attacks. She's just essentially a volatile with more health and durability. That's really all. And I mean, she does have an annoying scream that deals a lot of damage, but apart from that, she does almost nothing. She does jump small distances like volatiles, but that's just basically about it. She also shredded all those soldiers, ripping them into pieces. But that in itself is just okay. Like, are we going to act like Waltz can't do that? Sure, he doesn't rip people apart since he doesn't have those finger metal claw things, but he's strong enough without any inhibitor boosting him to kill people with a single blow. Also, I'm pretty sure Crane wouldn't even need to have transformed to kill the Mother. He was already doing a fantastic job, and his weapons would have been more than enough to kill the Mother. I mean, just just look at the fight, he was already winning against her shenanigans, but that was out of his control and we'll never get to know. But what about Waltz? Once again, he was causing shock waves, destroying the ground, hurtling concrete, coating his arms in some kind of energy. Although that last part can be ignored. Anyways, we can literally see Aiden to determine how much stronger Waltz is compared to the mother. At one point when we saw Aiden enter his beast form, he began destroying and killing volatiles with a single blow. Waltz had to go up against this Aiden, and their final confrontation both go full out and it takes multiple hits from Aiden for Waltz to go down. And even then, Waltz was fighting back like a mad dog. His durability right off the bat was already insane, but this just shows how much durability he actually had. Not only could he take a bunch of punishment, but he had enough strength to pay it back. I mean, just look at his physical capabilities. This guy was jumping so far, he was doing things that the mother herself never did. So we know his strength is definitely higher than hers, and we can safely determine his durability is much higher as well. He took a missile not directly on him, but close enough that it would kill just about anyone. And then there's speed. I mean, we can assume both can run at great speed similar to volatiles, but one of the fight sequences with Waltz is just having him running around. Does this mean he's faster? No. Does it mean he's slower? No. And especially with his jumping? Yeah, no, it's not even a competition at that point. So how would the fight go? Well, her clones at first might cause him a little trouble, but he can literally spam his shockwave attack nullifying those clones. Could they possibly do damage to him? Yeah, but it wouldn't be enough to take him out. Once again, Human Crane was taking care of these clones with ease. There's no reason to believe Waltz wouldn't be able to do the same. And then once the true fight begins, I think it just becomes one-sided. Keep in mind, most of Waltz's attack without any inhibitors boosting him yet were strong enough to knock Aiden down. And let's say after a certain point of the mother doing enough damage to Waltz, Waltz would just become stronger, same way he did against Aiden. And this is still not using any inhibitors. Now, I do think the mother would be able to push Waltz. Her winning factor is her scream, and she can use it to injure Waltz. Also, when Waltz uses too many attacks, he becomes a little stunned, or I guess staggered, which would give the mother an opening. Also, Waltz wouldn't be able to run since that would just cause her powers to kick in. But in a fight, her attacks are just way too basic, and Waltz thrived when Aiden closed the distance. And she literally has to fight him in close range. I could also see the mother screaming and Waltz hurtling a piece of concrete on her ass. So right now, I'm going to be extremely generous here and say that the mother manages to almost kill Waltz. Well, that doesn't matter because Waltz would just pop one of his inhibitors, not only healing him, but making him stronger. At this point, there should be no argument whatsoever. Waltz is clearly stronger than the mother in his base. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he would win against her, but it would be a very close fight. And keep in mind, I'm being very generous to the mother right now. So even if she did somehow win against base Waltz, once he popped the inhibitor, the fight would be over. I mean, not only would he get healed, she would be too injured to continue fighting Waltz. And even if you wanted to claim that she still beats him, once he pops those other inhibitors, yeah, no, it's a slaughter. It's not even close, and it's not even fair. She would just be tickling his balls at this point. And it might seem like I'm downplaying the mother, but I'm really trying not to. She's strong, don't get me wrong. It's just based on everything that we went over, Waltz is clearly stronger. You also gotta keep in mind, I'm using the mother who fought Crane, so she has that added darkness boost to her. It's just there isn't much for her in terms of screen time, and what we did see doesn't even come close to Waltz. People just really don't like Waltz, and he suffers from this since people will typically pick the character they like the most. And more people like the mother, so they'll just say she's automatically stronger. But I hope this video answers the question. All this is just my opinion. I tried using facts and feats shown, and even this won't be enough to satisfy people. But at the end of the day, this video is supposed to be for fun. Do you agree or disagree with the verdict? Either way, the verdict is Waltz is physically stronger, and in a fight to the death, Waltz wins. This is the end of the video. Like, sub, or don't as long as you enjoyed the video. Goodbye.